Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk about interviews, about interview skills. Maybe you're somebody that is looking for a new job, that wants to kind of touch up on their interview skills, somebody that is going for a college interview. There's lots of different scenarios that you can apply these interview tips and tricks to. So let's get started. So I know you're probably looking at me going, okay Amy, you're normally talking about like makeup and hair. That's my hobby, definitely, makeup, hair, and all of my YouTube bits and pieces. But I actually have a background in recruitment, in training, and in like a little bit of HR as well. I've sat in on many interviews and I've been interviewed many times for lots of different things as well. So I really do think that I have some really good advice and good knowledge from both sides of the table in an interview scenario. So I'm really hoping that you can take something from my little nuggets in this video today. So the area that I want to focus on first is the area of preparation. You cannot be too prepared going into an interview. Simple as, you just can't. So let's walk it through from the minute you pick up the phone to accept that interview right to when you're sitting in that interview room. From the minute you pick up that phone and somebody says, hey Amy, we actually would love to invite you for an interview, you are on. You are switched on, you're in business mode, and that's where your first impressions piece with the hiring company is going to start. So be it with your recruiter, if you're dealing with a recruitment company, or with the hiring manager, it's so important to be on the ball when it comes to your phone etiquette, to how you follow up with them on different things. So somebody calls you, they say, hey, we really love to invite you for interview, and you say, oh, okay, well, I'm not really too sure when I'm free. That's a really bad first impression, and you're starting off on a wrong foot from the get-go, and you don't want that. So you need to be just super positive, super nice, and I would always recommend people to ask if there's anything that you need to do in preparation for your interview. So for instance, in some cases you might be asked to give a presentation or to prepare something. They usually will give you the detail of that, but just in case, if there's anything that you think they might need of you, just say, that is super, I am thrilled to be brought forward for interview. I'm just wondering, is there anything you'd like me to do to prepare, anything I should bring with me? And then the person that you're speaking to on the phone will normally direct you. So you come off the phone, that is where the work begins. You need to do a couple of things of what I would consider to be due diligence of you as an interviewee. Number one, a Google search of the company. It's that simple. Literally Google the company wherever you are going to work. If it's a school, if it's a college, if it's a company, if it's a whatever, Google it and find out as much information as you possibly can about this place. I once did an interview and I was given a prep sheet from the HR team where I used to work, and one of the questions on the prep sheet, so it was kind of like a marking sheet that I had to mark for people that I was interviewing, and one of the things that I had to mark was their knowledge of the company. So one of the question that I would ask them is, have you ever heard of company X before? And if they said no, then they didn't get a mark. But if they said, yeah, I actually looked up your website and I saw that you do this and you do that, they got marks for that. So just be kind of cognizant of that as well. If you know the person that is going to interview you, maybe look them up. Maybe have a little look and just see. Sometimes if you're dealing with recruitment companies, they might just give you a name and they might not tell you exactly what that person does. So I think it's important to know, well, am I sitting down to be interviewed by the CEO, or am I sitting down to be interviewed by the hiring manager, or is it going to be the HR manager, or who exactly is this person? So don't be afraid if you haven't gotten that information from your recruitment company. I would say either Google them or look them up on LinkedIn, or like I say, ask your recruitment company more about them. The next point that you want to address in terms of your preparation for an interview is to plan your outfit. And I know this sounds, again, like really girly and really silly, but I think it's so important that you plan exactly what you're going to wear to an interview. I cannot even explain the amount of times people have rocked into interviews either unbelievably overdressed in like a three-piece suit in the case of like some people, or unbelievably underdressed, like somebody just wearing leggings and a long top. And in both cases, it's kind of off-putting and you're like, oh, okay, that's kind of strange. I would say to err on the side of caution, don't go for anything too colourful, stick with block colours. you know, black skinny jeans or black pants and some sort of blouse or a shirt in the case of a guy. I think that's really important. I think you really just need to look neat. But that also depends on the industry that you're interviewing for. So for instance, my background is also in retail, and I would have spent a lot of time in fashion retail. And I know that some fashion retailers actually kind of look at what you wore to interview and judge a little bit on that. So like, interviews are where you're going to be judged, so that's just going to happen anyway. So your clothes in that kind of scenario, you know, your outfit is going to be judged. For example, if you're going in as a merchandiser for a big fashion retailer, they're going to judge what you're wearing into your interview. So just kind of be aware that that is the case, and always choose carefully. If you're going for something in healthcare, I would always just recommend to be neat. And I'd also check in with your recruiter just to see if they have any advice on dress code or on that side of things. The other super important part of your preparation is knowing where you are going. I cannot stress this enough, and I've done it myself. I've gone to like a wrong place, and I've seen people that I've interviewed that have gone to wrong places, and it just creates such unnecessary stress and panic on a day that's already potentially going to be stressful anyway, and nerves are high. So just always know where you're going. What I would personally do, if the place you're going is, if you know where it is, that's totally fine. You're off the hook, you're grand. But if you don't know where it is and you know it's kind of close by, I would do a recce. So I would actually go and take a little drive around, see exactly where you're going, kind of have an idea of, oh, there's bad traffic around that time, the train or the bus that I'm taking get me there on time, or, you know, will I try and sort out some other transport? I would really put a lot of time into figuring out where exactly you're going, how long it's going to take you, and always aim to be there at least 10 minutes early. I think that's just a really good safe cushion, and to be honest, you're kind of expected to be there about 10 minutes early. People would start looking out for you around 10 minutes to get out your Google Maps and map yourself, map your journey, know exactly where you're going. A really obvious one in terms of preparation is to know your CV. So this is like, some people would be like, of course, like I wrote my CV, of course I know it. But realistically, if I'm to think back, like, oh, when did I do my undergrad? I'd have to actually stop and think and be like, oh, was it? Oh. So sometimes you don't know. Sometimes you take for granted, like, you're like, oh, there was a 3-month gap between when you did this and when you did that. Why was that? And you're like, oh, is there? So look back over your CV, make sure everything checks out, that everything is correct, and that you know it inside out. And also be prepared to justify gaps in your CV, because people are going to ask, you know, and, you know, own these kinds of things. And that's kind of going to be my next point, is own all of your experiences. So if you took a year or 2 or 3 years out to look after your family, just say that or put it down in your CV. Just, people do it all the time. It's extremely common. So put it down in your CV and be prepared to talk about it as well. So that's the preparation side. So let's say you've picked out your outfit, you know exactly where you're going, you're there 10 minutes early, and you're sitting there. One little piece of advice that I would give you is not to sit and just, like, you know, if you're sitting in a reception area or a waiting area like this. I think that at this point, when you're waiting to go in for your interview, you're in the perfect situation to suss out the environment. So that means just putting down your phone, unless of course you need to be on your phone, that's totally fine. But put down your phone, sit back and observe. Have a little look around, see what the vibe is around the building. What is the receptionist like, or what's the person like that you just checked in with, or, you know, just get a vibe for what is kind of going on. Use that time. Also, personally, when I'm on my phone, I don't see somebody coming towards me, so I kind of like to be prepared. If I see somebody walking towards me, I can kind of be prepared, instead of I'm on my phone and the next thing there's somebody standing here and they're like, oh, hi, how are you? And I'm like, do you know, that kind of way? So I think it's important to kind of suss your surroundings and be ready for that person to come up, because they're going to come up in on top of you and be ready to shake your hand. The next point then, someone comes out to come get you. They come over to you and they go, hi Amy, lovely to meet you. Thank you so much for coming in to interview today. 3 of the most important things: eye contact, smile, good handshake. I don't mean like break your fingers handshake, and I also don't mean dead fish handshake. be mindful of that. At that point then, the person that is coming to collect you is going to make small talk, and that's their way of putting you at ease. So whether they're bringing you to the next room or bringing you down the hall, or whether they might actually be the person that's interviewing you, but they're going to make small talk. They're going to say, did you find the building okay? How was traffic? Did you get here all right? Did you have any difficulty finding us? They're all the kind of normal small talk topics that people use, and really it's a technique to calm you, to have a little brief chat, and also just to kind of make sure that you're not overly nervous. The next point, you're coming into the room and you're meeting somebody else. Again, eye contact, smile and handshake, really, really important. So you're sitting down and the first thing they ask you, the dreaded question of, so tell me a little bit about yourself. This is, I think, the question that you need to be most prepared for. You want to talk a little bit about you personally, you want to interweave that with all of your professional information, and in the end you want to conclude by, and that's why I'm here with you today, or that's why I'm sitting in front of you now. So for instance, I would say something like, well, as you know, my name is Amy, I am living in Dublin, I'm actually from Westmeath, my husband and I have relocated for our jobs in the last couple of years. I have a background, as you know, in pharmacy, but I also have a really recent background in training, and I'm looking to pursue my career in training, and that's why I'm here in front of you today. Something like that. Obviously you can flesh it out a little bit more, but it's again an opener, and it gives the interviewer an opportunity to pull at a couple of little things that you've said and use that little bit of information to inform the next question. In terms of questions and in terms of interviewers, always be aware that you are selling yourself, but they are also selling themselves to you. So I think it's really important that you give the information that they're looking for, but you also protect some of your information. And I know that sounds a bit strange, because we've been taught years and years of answer this and do this way, and it's all to benefit the interviewer and it's all to benefit the hiring company. But you need to also remember that you aren't entitled to give them certain information. So for instance, I was once asked in an interview what the turnover of the company that I was currently working for was, which I knew, but I wasn't telling them. I just said, sorry, I don't think I'm at liberty to discuss that kind of information. I just wasn't comfortable answering that question. And I think that's a key point. If you're not comfortable with a question, just make your excuses and get your way out of it. At the end of the day, you haven't been hired. You are here in front of them, you're talking to them, but you are maybe still employed by another company, and that's where your dedications lie. Another really important tip that I learned along the way, I was always like trying to answer everything as fast as I could and talk and get as much into my sentences as I could. Give yourself time to actually listen to and answer the question. Don't be afraid of awkward silences, please. I would rather, as an interviewer, I would rather somebody sat for 10 seconds completely silent and gave me a decent, well thought out answer than somebody that answered the question but actually did not address anything that I asked of them. So just remember that too. Just leave yourself some time to answer the question, and if you need to think about it, even say to the interviewer, oh, can I actually just have a second? I just want to think about that for a minute. They'll go, absolutely, no problem at all. That will not in any way affect you in a negative manner. Competency-based questions are asked all of the time in interviews, and it's a really good way of knowing how the interviewee will actually react, or has in the past reacted to a situation, so a real life situation. So an example of a competency-based question would be, tell me about a time where you led a team. Oh, and that will throw you a little bit, because you have to go, oh my God, I have to think back. When did I lead the team? What did I do? And if you had thought about that days previous and you prepared it, you would have an answer in your head kind of already, but when that's thrown at you and you're not prepared, it can be a little bit disastrous. So kind of have a couple of competency-based questions set out already. Just look them up, just literally Google competency-based questions and get about 10 of the most common ones, and you can kind of use them and adapt them to the questions that you might be asked within an interview. A really important part of competency-based questions is how to actually structure your answer. So they say with competency-based questions, you actually need to structure your answer using the STAR technique. So that means that you have to dictate the situation, the task, the action, and the result. So what was the situation that you were in? What was the task at hand? The action, what exactly did you do? And what was the result of everything? Definitely in part of preparation, practice competency-based questions because they are so popular, and they are ones that if you don't think even for a couple of minutes about before you go into an interview, they can throw you a little bit. So you have gone through your interview, you've answered all your sticky questions, you've gone through your competency-based questions, you've done really, really well, and now they turn it back onto you and they say, so have you any questions? My advice here is to always have a question. Always. It doesn't matter how silly you might think it is, have a question and have it prepared. So for example, when I was going for a job in retail, the question that I asked them was, oh, what is the uniform? What exactly do I need to wear in? And they said, oh, that's a really good question actually. You need to wear black pants and a black top. And I was like, oh, okay, brilliant. In more kind of senior roles, it might be, what exactly is the team structure? Another question might even be, and it's a question that I've asked recently in one of my recent interviews, what do you like about your job? And people very much go, oh, like they literally go, oh, because it throws them a little bit, and then it makes them think, okay, that's actually interesting. She's really interested in knowing what my values are and how, you know, what I value in my job. So that's another idea. What not to ask. Anything to do with salary, anything to do with time off, holiday allowance, anything that is just not appropriate. I'm all for negotiating a good salary for yourself, but I don't think that at first interview that's the place to do it. Anything to do with rotas, don't mention do you have sick pay. I've been asked that question once in an interview and I'm like, why would anyone even ask that question? That's just a weird question to ask. So have your question prepared. And if there's a burning question, or if there is a question that you have about salary, keep it in the back of your head. Maybe, like I said, if you're going with a recruiter, if you have a recruitment consultant working on your behalf, that's something you could field with them. But yeah, just steer away from the awkward kind of weird questions like sick pay, salary and annual leave, or rotas, or do you have to work weekends, or those kinds of questions. I would kind of stay away from them. Keep it quite light. Get your question across, definitely, but be careful at the same time. So guys, don't forget, your interview doesn't end when they ask you the last question or when you ask them the last question. Again, leaving the building, getting up, shaking their hands, saying thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me today. It was lovely to meet you both, or lovely to meet you. Having that little bit of manners and that little bit of courtesy as well, I think is really, really important. And again, the little kind of chit chat between maybe where you're being interviewed to the front door, if somebody's going to walk you to the front door, that's quite important as well, because you don't want to let anything slip. Not that you're being fake, but you want to remain professional at every point. It's really, really important. So until you're back in the car, or you're on the bus, or you're on the train, or you're walked away or whatever, just keep that professionalism literally as high as you possibly can to give the best impression and to give yourself the best opportunity at either getting the job or getting the place on the college course or whatever you might be interviewing for. So guys, I could probably talk about interviews all day, but I really just wanted to cut it down into a couple of key points that I thought might be useful for you. Please let me know if any of them have been useful. Naturally enough, I've left out loads of things. There's lots of different scenarios you could find yourself in when it comes to interviews and to getting jobs and whatnot. If you have an interview coming up, let me know down below, and also let me know how you get on, because that would be really interesting. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.